Single dad's twins saw a woman being ignored at the grocery store. What they did next left everyone in tears. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Natalie Brennan stood in the checkout line at Fry's Food and Drug on a Saturday morning in Phoenix, holding a basket with cat food and frozen dinners and the same brand of coffee she'd been buying for 5 years. And she was doing what she always did in public, which was making herself as small and unnoticeable as possible. Even though the large port wine-stained birthmark covering the entire left side of her face and down her neck made being invisible pretty much impossible. The birthmark had been there since birth, deep purple and red like someone had spilled wine across her skin, and it never washed off. And at 28 years old, Natalie had lived with it long enough to know exactly how people would react. The double take followed by the quick look away. The way eyes would slide right past her like she was a storefront window they didn't want to shop in. She'd stopped expecting anything different around age 12 when the staring and the whispers became background noise. She learned to tune out. Here's the thing, nobody tells you about having a visible difference that makes people uncomfortable. You don't just deal with cruelty or bullying like in the movies. Mostly you deal with being erased, with cashiers who look right through you to help the person behind you, with servers who take everyone else's order first, with strangers who physically step around you like you're a piece of furniture instead of a human being standing in their path. Natalie had worked as a veterinary technician for 6 years at a clinic in Tempe, and she was damn good at her job. Animals didn't care what she looked like. A scared dog getting stitches or a cat with a broken leg just wanted gentle hands and a calm voice, and Natalie had both. Her co-workers were fine, professional, and polite, but nobody ever invited her to happy hour or asked about her weekend, and she'd accepted somewhere around year 2 that this was just her life, work, and home, and the grocery store on Saturday mornings before the crowds got too bad. She was third in line behind a mom with 2 screaming toddlers and an older guy buying what looked like ingredients for a serious barbecue. And when it was finally her turn, Natalie stepped up to the conveyor belt and started unloading her basket. The cashier was a woman maybe in her 50s with bleached blonde hair and acrylic nails, and she looked up as Natalie approached. Her eyes landed on the birthmark for a fraction of a second, and then she did what they always did. Looked past Natalie's shoulder and called out, "I can help whoever's next," like Natalie was completely invisible. The woman behind Natalie, someone in yoga pants scrolling her phone, stepped forward without even questioning it, and Natalie felt that familiar burning in her chest that was half humiliation, half resignation. And she started to move her basket out of the way, because what was the point of arguing? This happened at least once a week, and fighting it just made everyone uncomfortable. What Natalie didn't know was that directly behind Yoga Pants Lady, there was a firefighter named Derek Kwan trying to wrangle 2 extremely observant 6-year-old twin girls who'd spent their entire short lives being raised to notice unfairness and call it out loud. Riley Kwan was holding a box of birthday candles they just picked out for their upcoming party, and Emma Kwan was clutching a stuffed elephant she'd convinced her dad to buy. And both girls had watched the entire interaction with the cashier with identical expressions of confusion, turning rapidly into outrage. Riley looked up at her dad with her face scrunched up the way it got when someone cut in line at the playground and said in a voice that was absolutely not an inside voice, "Dad, why did that lady skip her? She was here first. That's not fair." The entire front section of Fry's went dead silent, like someone had hit a pause button on the whole store. And Derek felt his face go hot because his daughters had inherited exactly 0 chill from either parent, and he could already tell this was about to become a scene. Emma wasn't about to be left out, and she pointed directly at the woman in yoga pants and announced to everyone within a 30-foot radius, "Excuse me, you cut it in front of the purple shirt lady. She was here first. You have to go to the back." Her little voice echoed off the fluorescent lights and the linoleum floor, and suddenly every single person in the checkout area was staring, some at the twins, some at Natalie, who'd frozen completely with her hand still on her shopping basket, some at the cashier, whose face had gone from bored to mortified in about 2 seconds flat. Derek put his hands on both girls' shoulders and tried to do damage control in a whispered voice that they absolutely ignored. "Girls' inside voices, we don't need to. It's okay. Let's just..." But Riley was on a mission now, and she walked right up to the cashier's counter and said with the kind of pure six-year-old conviction that could cut through steel, "My dad says cutting in line is rude, and you're supposed to wait your turn. The lady in the purple shirt was here first, and you have to help her." Emma nodded so hard her ponytail bounced. "Yeah, it's not nice to skip people. That's what my teacher says." The yoga pants woman had stepped back, looking like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole, and the cashier was stammering something that sounded like an apology, and Natalie just stood there completely shell-shocked, because in 28 years of being invisible, nobody had ever stood up for her like this, especially not two tiny girls with matching faces and zero fear. The cashier finally looked directly at Natalie for the first time, and her voice came out flustered and guilty. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't see you there. Please go ahead. I'll ring you up right now." Natalie's hands were shaking as she put her items on the belt, and she couldn't form words because her throat was too tight with emotions she didn't know what to do with. So she just nodded and scanned her rewards card and paid for her groceries while the entire checkout area watched in this weird, uncomfortable silence. The twins had retreated back to their dad, but they were still watching Natalie like they were making sure she got treated fairly. And Derek was running through about 17 different apologies in his head, while simultaneously being kind of proud of his kids for having the guts to call out injustice, even if the timing was mortifying. Natalie grabbed her two bags and basically speed walked toward the exit because she needed to get to her car before she started crying in the middle of the grocery store. And she made it to the parking lot and was fumbling with her keys when she heard small running footsteps behind her and a voice calling out, "Wait, purple shirt lady, wait." She turned around and saw the twin girls running full speed toward her, with their dad jogging behind them, looking apologetic and tired in equal measure. And Natalie's brain was still trying to process what had just happened inside. The girls skidded to a stop in front of her, slightly out of breath, and Emma spoke first with this expression of genuine concern that made Natalie's chest hurt. "We're really sorry people are mean to you. You seem really nice, and it's not fair when people are rude." Riley was staring at Natalie's face with the kind of unfiltered curiosity that only little kids can get away with. And then she said something that would replay in Natalie's head for weeks. "I like your face. It looks like a map. And maps are really cool because they show you where to go. My dad has maps in his truck for when his GPS doesn't work." There was absolutely zero meanness in her voice, just pure observation and a compliment delivered with the blunt honesty of a 6-year-old who hadn't learned yet that you're not supposed to talk about people's differences. Derek finally caught up to them and put a hand on each girl's shoulder. "Riley, Emma, you can't just chase people in parking lots. I'm so sorry about that. They're a little enthusiastic about justice and fairness. Clearly, we need to work on appropriate times and places." Natalie found her voice finally, and it came out scratchy like she hadn't used it in a while. "Don't apologize, please don't. They're the first people in years who actually saw me. Like really saw me and didn't just pretend I wasn't there." She looked down at the twins who were watching her with identical brown eyes full of curiosity and kindness. "Thank you for saying something. You didn't have to do that, but you did, and that was really brave." Emma beamed like she just won a prize. "You're welcome. My dad says standing up for people is important even when it's hard, and also your purple shirt is really pretty." Derek introduced himself properly. "I'm Derek. This is Riley and Emma. Again, I apologize for the scene in there. They haven't quite mastered the concept of subtle interventions yet." They stood there in the Fry's parking lot with the Arizona sun beating down and the smell of hot asphalt mixing with desert air. And Natalie felt something shift in her chest, something that had been closed off for so long she'd forgotten it could open. Riley tugged on Derek's shirt. "Dad, can we invite her to our birthday party? It's coming up and Grandma's making a cake and we're going to have games." Derek's face went slightly red. "Riley, you can't just invite strangers to your birthday party. That's not how. We don't even know if she's—" But Emma had already joined in. "Please come. We don't have very many people coming, just Grandma and some cousins and Uncle James. And you're our friend now, so you should come." Natalie felt tears starting to burn behind her eyes, and she blinked hard to keep them from falling. "That's really sweet of you girls, but I don't think that's a good idea. You don't really know me, and I'm sure you have enough people." But the twins were shaking their heads in unison like a match set. Derek looked at her with this expression that was part embarrassment, part something softer. Look, I know this is incredibly weird and forward, but they're not wrong. It's just a small backyard thing. Nothing fancy. If you're comfortable, you're genuinely invited. No pressure either way. Natalie's brain was screaming that this was too strange, too much, too risky to hope that these people actually wanted her around, so she defaulted to the safe answer. Thank you, really, but I should probably not. It was nice meeting you all, though, and thank you again for what you did in there. She got in her car before anyone could argue, and the twins waved enthusiastically as Derek herded them back toward their truck. And Natalie sat in the driver's seat of her beat-up Honda, with her groceries in the passenger seat, and let herself fall apart in the way she only did when she was completely alone. She cried the kind of tears that were more relief than sadness, because for the first time and longer than she could remember, someone had seen her not as something to avoid or ignore, but as a person worth defending, and two little girls with matching ponytails and their firefighter dad had given her something she'd stopped believing existed. The possibility that maybe she wasn't actually invisible after all. Maybe she'd just been waiting for the right people to look. The next Saturday morning, Natalie went back to the same fries at the same time because she was a creature of habit, and changing her routine felt like letting that grocery store incident mean more than it should. And she was halfway through the produce section, debating between regular tomatoes and the organic ones that cost twice as much, when she heard a shriek that made half the shoppers jump. It's the map lady. Dad, look, it's her. It's the purple shirt lady, except she's wearing a blue shirt today. Natalie turned around and saw Riley and Emma Kwan sprinting toward her like she was a celebrity they'd spotted in the wild. And Derek was speed walking behind them with a shopping cart calling out, "Girls, we do not run in grocery stores. How many times do I have to say that before it sticks?" The twins crashed to a stop in front of Natalie's cart with matching grins that were so genuinely excited to see her that Natalie felt something warm and unfamiliar spread through her chest. Emma grabbed onto Natalie's cart like she was claiming territory. "Hi, remember us? We're Riley and Emma. We saw you last week. You were getting cat food, so you must have a cat. What's your cat's name?" Riley was bouncing on her toes. "We have a dog named Pancake because when Dad brought him home, he was flat like a pancake from being so scared at the shelter. But now he's really fat and happy." Derek finally caught up looking apologetic in that way Natalie was starting to recognize as his default expression. "I am so sorry. We didn't mean to ambush you again. They spotted you from like 40 feet away and took off before I could stop them." Natalie found herself smiling for real, not the polite smile she gave vet clinic clients, but an actual genuine smile that reached her eyes. "It's okay, really. Hi, girls. Yes, I remember you. And I have two cats, actually. Their names are Soup and Sandwich." The twins dissolved into giggles because apparently naming pets after food was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. And Emma said, "Those are silly names. I love them. Do they like to cuddle or are they mean cats?" They ended up standing there in the produce section for 15 minutes while Natalie showed them photos of her cats on her phone, and the girls told her about Pancake's latest adventure, which involved him stealing an entire rotisserie chicken off the counter and hiding under the bed with it. Derek mostly listened and corralled the girls when they got too loud, and Natalie caught him watching her a few times with this expression she couldn't quite read, something between curious and grateful. When they finally said goodbye, the twins made her promise to be there next Saturday. "Because we always come on Saturday mornings. It's our routine, and now you're part of it," Emma announced with the kind of authority only a 6-year-old could pull off. Natalie drove home with groceries and this weird feeling in her chest, like maybe she had something to look forward to next weekend, which was not a feeling she was used to having about anything that involved other humans. The third Saturday, the twins found her in the cereal aisle and insisted she help them pick out a new kind to try, and Riley held up a box with cartoon characters on it. "Dad says we can only get the cereals that don't have 1,000,000 grams of sugar, but all the good ones have sugar. It's not fair." Natalie laughed and suggested a compromise brand that was moderately sugary, and Derek looked at the nutrition label and shrugged. "I'll allow it. You're a bad influence, though. Now they're going to want you here every week to help them negotiate." The fourth Saturday came, and Natalie realized she'd started actually planning her grocery trips around the possibility of seeing them. wearing shirts that weren't just the first clean thing she grabbed, even putting on a little bit of makeup, which was something she hadn't done for a regular grocery run in probably 3 years. She was comparing prices on coffee when Emma appeared at her elbow, looking unusually serious for a kid who was normally all energy and giggles. Natalie, can I ask you something? Why do you always shop by yourself? Don't you have friends who come with you or family? The question was so direct and innocent that Natalie didn't have time to put up her usual walls, and she knelt down so she was at Emma's eye level. That's a good question. The honest answer is people don't usually want to be my friend. They get uncomfortable because I look different, and it's easier for them to just not be around me. Emma's face scrunched up in confusion. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're really nice, and you know lots of stuff about animals, and you helped us pick good cereal. Those people are missing out. Riley had wandered over and heard the tail end of the conversation. Yeah, we're your friends now. You're stuck with us, Dad says. When you find good people, you hold on to them. Derek came around the corner with the shopping cart and saw his daughters looking very serious and Natalie looking like she might cry. What did I miss? Why does everyone look emotional in the coffee aisle? Natalie stood up and wiped at her eyes. Your kids just declared themselves my friends. I'm not really sure how to handle that. Derek's expression softened in a way that made Natalie's stomach do something complicated. Well, they have excellent taste in people, so I'd say you should probably accept the friendship before they start a petition or something equally dramatic. Week 5 rolled around, and Natalie had started to accept that Saturday morning grocery trips were now a social event she actually enjoyed. And when she ran into Derek and the twins by the bakery section, they were carrying balloons and a cake order receipt. Emma grabbed Natalie's hand. Our birthday party is tomorrow. Remember we invited you? Please say you're coming. We asked Dad like 100 times if you RSVP'd, and he said you didn't, and we really, really want you there. Natalie looked at Derek, who shrugged. I know it's last minute and totally weird, but the invitation still stands if you're comfortable. It's just a backyard thing at my mom's house, 2 to 5 tomorrow afternoon. Absolutely no pressure, but the girls haven't stopped talking about you for 5 weeks straight. Natalie's brain was doing that thing where it screamed that this was too risky, too much hope to put in people who would eventually get tired of accommodating her differentness. But Riley was looking up at her with eyes that were so genuinely hopeful, it physically hurt to think about disappointing her. Okay, yeah, I'll come. Do I need to bring anything? The twins literally jumped up and down in the middle of Fry's bakery section, and Derek laughed. Just yourself. Seriously, that's all they want? I'll text you the address. They exchanged numbers right there with Derek's hands slightly shaking as he typed her contact information into his phone. And Natalie drove home thinking she'd just agreed to attend her first social gathering in over 2 years, and she had absolutely no idea what to wear or how to act, or if this was going to end in complete disaster. Sunday afternoon at 1:45, Natalie sat in her car outside a house in Chandler with a wrapped present for the twins and a bottle of wine for the parents. Except Derek didn't have a co-parent. So maybe the wine was weird, and she was 3 seconds away from just driving home and texting an excuse when Riley and Emma came running out of the house screaming her name. They dragged her inside before she could escape, and Derek's mom Karen was in the kitchen putting finishing touches on a homemade cake, and she looked up when the girls came barreling in with Natalie in tow. Karen's eyes did the thing everyone's eyes did, the quick assessment of the birthmark, followed by the decision about how to react. But instead of looking away, she smiled warm and genuine. You must be Natalie. I've heard absolutely nothing except your name for weeks now. I'm Karen, Derek's mom. Thank you for coming. The party was small, like Derek had said, maybe 15 people total, mostly Derek's siblings and their kids and a couple of neighbors. And Natalie felt the familiar weight of being looked at, being assessed, being the visible different thing in the room that people didn't know how to address. Derek's sister Jennifer did the polite smile and immediate look away. His brother James shook her hand, but his eyes never quite met hers. And Natalie was about to make an excuse to leave when Riley grabbed her hand and announced to the entire backyard, Everyone, this is our friend Natalie. She works with animals and she has 2 cats named Soup and Sandwich. And she's really nice, so you should all be nice to her too. The party activities kicked off, and Natalie found herself actually participating, helping set up the piñata, judging the three-legged race, and somehow ending up in charge of face painting, even though she'd never done it before. The irony of her painting butterflies and flowers on kids' faces when her own face was the thing people avoided looking at wasn't lost on her, but the kids didn't care. They just wanted sparkles and rainbows and to look like superheroes. Derek brought her lemonade and sat down next to her while she was painting whiskers on a 5-year-old. You're really good with them. The kids, I mean, they respond to you. It's kind of amazing to watch. Natalie kept her eyes on the careful brushstrokes. Animals and kids are easier than adults. They don't have all the complicated social stuff. They just react honestly to how you treat them. Derek was quiet for a second. For what it's worth, I think adults are idiots for not seeing past surface stuff. My girls taught me that. They see hearts before they see anything else. Across the yard, Karen was watching them talk, watching how Natalie made Derek laugh, watching how the twins stayed close to Natalie the entire party, like she was a magnet they couldn't resist. And she filed that observation away to mention to her son later. The party wound down around 5:30, and parents started collecting their sugar-crashed kids, and Natalie helped clean up because sitting still felt awkward, and she needed something to do with her hands. Derek walked her to her car when she finally said her goodbyes, and the twins had already hugged her 17 times and made her promise to be at the grocery store next Saturday. They stood in the driveway with the early evening Phoenix heat finally breaking into something manageable, and Natalie said what she'd been thinking all afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. I haven't felt included in something like that in years. I forgot what it felt like to be part of things. Derek leaned against her car and his voice came out softer than usual. You weren't a pity invite. I need you to know that. The girls genuinely love you, and honestly, I do too. Love having you around. I mean, you make them happy, and that makes me happy. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. Neither of them was quite ready to unpack. And Natalie felt her face get hot in a way that had nothing to do with the Arizona sun. Can I ask you something? Derek said, and then continued before she could answer. Would it be okay if I gave the girls your number so they could text you? They've been asking if they can send you pictures of Pancake in their artwork. Completely understand if that's too much. Natalie surprised herself by saying yes immediately, and Derek's smile was bright enough to make her forget for a second that she was supposed to be guarding her heart against exactly this kind of hope. She drove home with a bag of leftover birthday cake and the twins' drawings they'd insisted she take, and her phone buzzed 20 minutes later with a text from a number she now had saved as Derek, Riley, and Emma's dad that just said, the girls wanted me to tell you that you're the best face painter ever, and also Pancake misses you already. Thanks for making their day special. Natalie read that text about 15 times before she fell asleep that night, and somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice that sounded suspiciously like hope whispered that maybe being seen wasn't just a one-time thing. Maybe these people were actually planning to stick around. 2 months of Saturday grocery store meetups turned into weekly park visits and zoo trips and library storytime sessions. And every single time Derek asked Natalie to join them, he'd add, the girls really want you there. Like he needed an excuse when they both knew it had stopped being just about the kids somewhere around week 3. Natalie's phone was full of voice messages from Riley and Emma telling her about their day or asking questions about why cats purr, and Derek would text her separately late at night. Conversations that started as 3 messages would turn into hour-long exchanges about everything and nothing. One Thursday in late October, Derek called instead of texting, and his voice sounded nervous in a way she hadn't heard before. So I have a potentially weird question. My mom's taking the girls tomorrow night, and I was wondering if maybe you'd want to grab dinner, like just us, adult conversation, no 6-year-olds interrupting every 4 seconds. Natalie's stomach dropped and then launched into her throat because this was different. This was an actual date, and her brain started screaming all the reasons this was dangerous. Yeah, okay, that sounds really nice, actually, came out before her fear could write a different script, and Derek let out a breath that sounded like relief. Friday night, Natalie changed outfits 4 times before settling on a dark green dress, and when Derek showed up in actual nice jeans instead of his usual dad uniform of t-shirt and cargo shorts, she realized he was just as nervous. Dinner was easy in the way their conversations had always been easy. They talked about work and childhood, and the fact that neither of them had been on a real date in years. Somewhere between pasta and dessert, Derek reached across the table and took her hand. My kids saw you before I did. They taught me to look past what I'd been conditioned to ignore, and I'm sorry it took me so long to actually see you the way they did from day one. Natalie felt tears starting and blinked them back. I'd given up on being seen like this. And then your girls literally refused to let me be invisible. They gave me something I didn't know I was allowed to want anymore. Derek's thumb rubbed circles on the back of her hand. I want to keep seeing you officially. I know it's complicated, but they already love you. And I'm falling for you too if I'm being completely honest. They stayed until the servers started stacking chairs. And when Derek walked Natalie to her door, he kissed her for the first time. Careful and sweet, like he was afraid she might disappear. 3 weeks later, Derek's sister Jennifer pulled him aside after Sunday dinner and planted seeds of doubt he didn't want growing. Are you sure you're ready, or are you just grateful she's good with the girls? There's a difference between appreciating help and actually being in love. I don't want you confusing the two. Derek defended his feelings, but that night he sat staring at nothing, wondering if Jennifer was right, if he was mistaking gratitude for love. He started pulling back without meaning to, still saw Natalie but kept things surface level, stopped the late-night texts, made excuses about being busy, when really he was spiraling about whether his motivations were pure. Natalie noticed immediately because she'd spent her whole life reading micro-expressions, and her brain went exactly where it always went. He's realized the birthmark is too much. He's figured out being seen with me is embarrassing. I should have never let myself hope this hard. She stopped initiating texts, started making herself less available, built her walls back up, and neither addressed the growing distance. Riley and Emma noticed within 4 days that their dad was sad quiet, and Natalie wasn't coming over as much, and they held a serious meeting in their bedroom, like tiny relationship therapists. Saturday morning, a week before Thanksgiving, the twins confronted Derek while he was making pancakes, and Riley climbed on the counter to be at eye level, which was against the rules, but she meant business. Dad, you love Natalie. We know you do. We've seen you smile at your phone when she texts. You made her that special coffee with cinnamon, the way she likes it. So why are you being all weird? Emma stood as backup. Yeah, and Natalie's being weird too. She didn't send us a voice message yesterday, and she always does. Did you guys fight? Derek stopped mid-pancake flip and looked at his daughters staring at him with identical expressions of concern. I'm scared I'm not doing this for the right reasons. What if I just like her because she's good with you guys? His voice came out more honest than he meant, and Riley shook her head so hard her ponytail whipped around. Dad, that's dumb. You like her because she's nice and she makes you happy? We see it. Everybody sees it except you. Emma ran to their bedroom and came back with construction paper covered in crayon drawings. We made you a list of why Natalie is the best. Look, she knows about animals, she laughs at your bad jokes, she looks at you like you're special, and she smells like vanilla. Derek read that list in his daughter's handwriting and felt like the world's biggest idiot because his kids could see what he'd been too scared to trust, that what he felt for Natalie was real. He called his mom with a plan, drove to Fry's at 10 on Saturday, knowing Natalie would be there, found the twins hiding where he'd asked and took a deep breath. Natalie was in the frozen food aisle when Derek found her and started speaking loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Natalie Brennan, I know you're in here because it's Saturday morning and you're extremely predictable, and I need to say something in front of witnesses so I can't take it back later. Natalie froze with her hand on ice cream, and every person in the store stopped to listen. My daughter saw you when no one else did. They taught me to look past surface stuff, but I didn't fall for you because you're good with my kids. I fell for you because you make me laugh, and you're brilliant and kind, and you see me as more than just a single dad barely holding it together. His voice cracked slightly, and Natalie started walking toward the front with other shoppers, following like a parade. I got scared and pulled away because someone made me doubt myself. But my 6-year-olds are smarter than me, and they made me a list of why you're perfect for us. And I don't want to stop seeing you. I want to see you every day for as long as you'll let me. He finished and stood there looking terrified and hopeful, and 2 small voices yelled, "Surprise!" as Riley and Emma jumped out from behind a display where they'd been hiding. Natalie started laughing and crying and walked right up to Derek. You made a grand gesture in the grocery store where we met. You brought your kids as backup. How am I supposed to say anything except yes? Derek's smile was so bright it could have powered the whole store. Yes to what specifically? I didn't actually ask a clear question. Natalie kissed him right there in front of everyone. Yes to all of it. To seeing you every day. To being part of this. To letting your kids teach me that being seen is a gift I'm allowed to keep. The entire store erupted in applause, and the twins were jumping and yelling, "We told you she was perfect for us." 1 year later, they got married at the fire station with Riley and Emma as flower girls in matching purple dresses. And Natalie's vows were about invisibility and being seen, and how sometimes the people who save you are 6 years old with infinite courage. Derek's vows were about his daughters, teaching him that the best love sees past what everyone else ignores. At the reception, the twins gave a speech about how they'd known from the beginning that Natalie was supposed to be their family and how grown-ups should listen to kids more often. Sometimes being seen isn't about changing yourself. It's about finding people brave enough to see past what makes others uncomfortable. And sometimes those people are twin 6-year-olds in a grocery store who refuse to let injustice slide. If this story reminded you that your differences don't make you invisible, that the right people will see you, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear they're worth seeing. Thanks for being here with us, and remember, the best love stories start with people who refuse to look away.